Journal entry from Crystal Jacobs dated July 18th, 2050. Day at the beach ended terribly. At first things were okay. Me and Jessica were building the biggest, coolest sandcastle. Then we were going to do that thing where you bury someone in the sand with their head sticking out. But we started fighting about who would get buried and who would get to cover the other in sand. Mom yelled at us to stop fighting and that no one was going to bury anybody. She was just mad that we interrupted her nap. After that, Jessica went into the water, and that's when things got crazy. She'd been in there for like 5 minutes when she started screaming. Dad pulled her out of the water, and Jessica was so pale, and she was screaming and crying, and there was this gross foam coming out of her mouth. We're at the hospital now. The doctor thinks she's been poisoned, but they have no idea how. Everyone's freaking out. I don't know what to do.
No one is really sure what happened to the ocean in the 2050s. For that 22-year period from 2050 to 2072, the oceans of the world were basically intermittently poisonous. Sometimes the ocean would be normal, but every so often when people got in the water, they'd get really sick like they'd been poisoned. They'd experience intense pain, nausea, vomiting, foaming at the mouth, and if they went long enough without treatment, they'd experience even worse symptoms like convulsions and internal hemorrhaging, and eventually the condition would result in death.
Amy Smith talking about her sister Betty in 3014. Betty was always kind of crazy, always doing something really out there. We used to tease her about it, me and my other siblings, but she was kind of a genius too, looking back on it. She was doing her underwater basket weaving thing before the ocean changed. None of us really understood it, but she never cared what we thought. When it started coming out that there was something wrong with the ocean water and people couldn't go in it anymore because it was impossible to tell when it was safe and when you'd get really sick from the water, it really broke her heart. That's what motivated her. So she decided that she was going to be the one to do something about it. And she took it on just like it was one of her crazy art projects. And she ended up changing everything. Before the ocean was toxic, Betty Smith was really more of an artist and a craftswoman, but she had a background in the sciences. She graduated from college with an engineering degree, and a lot of her art involved highly technical elements. She was a very knowledgeable and ingenious woman. Most scientists at the time were mainly focused on discovering the source of the toxicity and on working on possible treatments for people exposed to the toxins. Betty and the team that she put together were some of the first people to focus on actually trying to fix what was going on in the water, and she was the first one to successfully create something that would reliably sense the toxicity of the water. So here you can see our virtual recreation of what the drone might have looked like, alongside a scaled-up version of the water testing apparatus inside of it, based on first-hand descriptions and surviving notes and data. It was an underwater drone equipped with a biosensor. In 2051, scientists were able to conclude that the toxins were biological in nature, so all experimenting that Smith did from that point on focused on different ways of detecting this particular biological material. The drone would let in water, gather data from the sensor, and then release the water. The data from the drone could then be analyzed to determine if the ocean was safe for people to be in. It's really a shame that so little of the actual technology or even documentation of the technology from that period survived to today. It's described as a really elegant instrument, simple yet effective, and it saves so many lives. From an article posted to www.nytimes.com on February 7th, 2059, by Harold Turnblatt, archived by the United States Historical Society on November 10th, 3054. The drone developed by Smith is small, sleek, and elegant. It almost resembles a tiny rocket. She claims it tests the toxicity levels of the ocean, letting people know if it's safe to go in. The scientific community plans to conduct more widespread testing of Smith's bot to corroborate the veracity of the instrument. If it works as well as she claims it does, this drone could be a huge breakthrough. Who knows how many subsequent breakthroughs it may inspire? There was never conclusive evidence to suggest what caused the biotoxins to be released, why they were only present in the water some of the time, or why the biotoxins abruptly disappeared in 2072. There was a lot of discussion and research about the origin of the toxin at the time and in subsequent years, but scientists were never able to truly determine the cause. At the time, the most popular theory involved a new species of seaweed, but that was largely discredited in the years following. There were a lot of scientists after the fact who believed the toxins to be coming from species affected by corporations dumping waste into the ocean, such as the notorious Dr. Elizabeth Avery. Dr. E.F. Avery from New Theory for Origin of Aquatic Biotoxins During the Time of the Toxic Ocean 2050 to 2072 in the New Californian Journal for Marine Ecology, Volume 5, Issue 13, March 1st, 2098. Archived by the United States Historical Society on September 21st, 3098. While Dr. Uma Gardner of the University of the Atlantic and her ilk has long hypothesized that the toxin was being released by an invasive species of seaweed, my research is beginning to paint a somewhat different picture. The research presented in this paper will clearly show that the biotoxins were released by schools of fish who suffered genetic mutations after being exposed to toxic waste and garbage. Avery's research practices were pretty sound, but she had a tendency to exaggerate her conclusions, so her theories are also frequently called into question. We may never know for sure why the ocean became so occasionally poisonous during the 2050s, 60s, and 70s. But something that we do know about this period is that the people of the world really rose to the occasion. When we look at this time, we see a level of creativity, ingenuity, and human spirit that is incredibly rare, and that we could really use more of, even in times of relative ease. Betty Smith is such an icon of the time because she really embodies that innovation and passion.